Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from Oman Talks NRL SuperCoach. In today's video, going through some more final updated thoughts on round 13, now that the dust has settled post-Origin and we've got a bit of a better idea on the players that will be backing up, maybe others that won't be, and any other updated trade thoughts that I have for my own team and just in players in general. So I guess very quickly on Origin and the fallout from that. To be honest, not that much carnage I think has really come out from it. It looks like Payne Haas has been cleared to play as well by the Broncos. I would just expect probably lower minutes from him. But I think the fact that he's playing, the fact that he looked really, really good on Wednesday, picked up the Man of the Match award. I know a lot of people were looking at selling if he didn't play this week because of his high price tag, and he's going to miss a fair few games in the next little while. If you do look ahead, a lot of people probably eyeing up maybe like a Payne Haas to a Kolomatangi trade potentially. But the fact that he's playing this week most likely, then he's got the Titans in 14. I think you want to keep him for those next two. 15 he'll miss, 16 could be a tough backup because that's the game that's going all the way from Perth back to Brisbane. 17 is the Warriors, then 18 he'll miss, and then 19 again is a game against the Titans where he could rest. Maybe round 15 is when you do to sell Payne Haas if you want to. But I think at the moment I'm looking at holding for the time being, and just given my trade situation, I don't want to be selling and having to buy back too many of my gun Origin players. I'm going to be doing that with Cleary most likely in 15 for Nico Hines. And I don't really want to be selling too many of my Origin players and then kind of trying to bring them back when our trades are running a little bit lower. Tino, we haven't got full confirmation yet, but most of the reports seem to suggest that he will play. Lomax, Cleary, or your Penrith players, we haven't really heard anything to suggest otherwise. There was maybe a little bit of doubt, I think, around Mitch Moses, but from all reports that I've read so far, it looks like he should be more or less okay to play. They've got until Sunday, 4 o'clock to play. So I think someone like a Mitch Moses, I would expect to be playing. That would definitely change my thoughts though on like a Lomax, because he is one of the more traded in players now. If you look at the top 10 trade-ins, he's currently in 7th. If you change that to coaches in the higher ranks, so top 5%, actually he is 2nd. And he'll be 2nd again probably if we look at the top 1%, because Kolomatangi is probably going to be number 1. Yeah, that's the case. So Lomax is a very, very popular trade-in this round. I think for sure if Moses is cleared to play, I think Lomax is a great trade-in for this week. Some people will be looking, well, is Penrith and then the Bulldogs, and then he misses round 15 and he misses round 18, of course, with State of Origin. And then there's that risk of him potentially, not being able to back up in 16 or 19. Lomax just feels like one of those players, though, who's generally going to back up if he's fit and available for his club. Parramatta need him. They don't really have great other options in their outside backs as coverage. And other good thing with Lomax as well is if you look ahead to the future rounds in those mini buy rounds. So if you look at round 16, so this is obviously the one where they'll all be coming back from Perth. Parramatta play the very, very last game of the round, Sunday, 6 p.m. in Sydney. Probably adequate time, I think, for him to come back, recover, and then suit up for that game. And we talk a lot about the mini buy rounds 16 and 19. They're going to be very, very tough weeks to cover. And I think if your team is well set up for 15 and 18, as it currently stands, someone like a Lomax or an Origin player that you think will back up who plays 16 or 19 is actually very good, because they're going to be a bit of a point of difference. Not as many people are going to be owning them because not many people are wanting to trade in Origin players at this point in the season. But someone like a Lomax who, if you think he plays 16, juicy matchup at home against the Titans. And then round 19, which is a pretty tough matchup in terms of availability of players, because we're going to have the Raiders, Manly, and I think it's the team escapes me. The Rabbitohs. I think it's a very, very relevant team. So again, that's going to be a tough mini buy round to cover. And Parramatta play again on Sunday, 4 o'clock against Penrith. Not a great matchup, but again, Penrith could rest their players. Look, there's obviously a risk that Lomax could miss 19 as well, but I guess it's about trying to lock in a guy who's pretty much a season keeper. He's got a base power average this season of 56. The matchup against Penrith this week and then the Bulldogs. We've seen the Bulldogs concede a lot of points recently. Just getting onto this screen here as well. If you look at Penrith in terms of conceding points on their edges, they've conceded 46% of their tries this season to their left edge. So that means Zach Lomax's right side of the field. He's coming up against Casey McLean and Tom Jenkins. It's not necessarily like a powerhouse in terms of a defensive edge. Then next week against the Bulldogs, who all season long have been very, very good defensively. But if you look at them here, they've conceded 31% of tries on the left edge, which isn't a great number. It's the other side of the field that's the more preferred matchup. But someone like a Lomax who he's got as I said, base power season average of 56, kicks goals. He's easily getting to 60, 65 most weeks. You'll happily take that. I think he's worth the price as well at 728k. And a break even of 43. Another big score this week, which I think could easily happen. And he's going over for a big price increase. And I guess the thing with Lomax as well is you're just locking in someone who is a bit of a point of difference. Of course, he's getting more heavily traded in. But in terms of volume of trade-ins, he's not anywhere near the likes of like a Kolomatangi. And I think he will remain a bit of a point of difference. I think this week's matchup is a good one as well if you dig into the numbers and also who he's coming up against individually, as opposed to us traditionally looking, I guess, at Penrith. So yeah, not making it a secret, but I'm very, very keen on Lomax this week. And I think he's also just in great form. The last 2 games he's played, he scored a double in both games actually. He scored 121 versus the Knights, had a great State of Origin game for game 1. I think he's just going to pick up where he's left off from those two, in my opinion. So I do really like a Lomax trade in this week. We spoke a lot about Kolomatangi on the Tuesday Q&A, so I won't probably go into too much detail, but I think Kolomatangi's fantastic trade-in. The fact that New South Wales won and the forwards were very good makes me think that he's not going to get picked, barring, of course, anything but an injury. But that's the risk you take. But I think at 612k for the numbers he's putting up when he plays in the middle, I think he's a great trade-in as well. And yeah, those top 2 very likely coming in for me. Ewan Aitken is also a very, very good shout at 534k. The dual status is really good. Very, very good numbers when he plays on an edge for the Bunnies. I would take Kolomatangi over him just, I think, because of the, I wouldn't call it upside, but it's just Kolomatangi's numbers in the middle are just ridiculous. Ewan Aitken is like a safe 60 to 65 most week. Kolomatangi in the middle is probably like 75 to 80. So I think those extra 10 to 15 points for less than 100k price difference between the two, I'll probably take a Kolomatangi. But yeah, really like a Ewan Aitken. Kyle McCarthy, I was a bit keener on him earlier in the week, but some of the reports are that Bradman Best is going to be due back around round 16. So there is some short shelf life risk on someone like a Kyle McCarthy. There's not a great amount of downgrades this week. I think if you are looking at downgrades, ideally you want someone who plays 15. Latu Fainu could be one who comes very soon for the West Tigers. He doesn't cover 15, but he does cover 18 if he gets named to play. But obviously Galvin getting dropped by the Tigers, it looks imminent that he'll be leaving. And then you get someone like a Latu Fainu once he's back fit and available. Otherwise at 5'8", you can still go someone like King Tongia. The Dragons are a team who have got pretty good buy coverage from this point onwards. But I wouldn't be selling someone like a Munster or a Jaden Campbell, I think, to King Tongia. If you've got duels, ideally to get like a Adam Dewey down to him, or like an underperforming centre as well via duels, that would be a good way to downgrade, but probably not your 2 guns, 5'8s there in in Jaden Campbell or Cam Munster. Lehigh Hopewadi, so a lot of questions about him this week as well. I think a lot of people are thinking, do I get Lehigh or Lomax this week if I had to? Again, this is going to be a bit of a cop-out answer, but I will strongly suggest you look at your buy coverage, look at 15, 16, 18 and 19, and which of those rounds do you need the number more. If you don't feel like you need numbers in 15 and 18 and you're well set up, then I think get a Lomax, because Lomax will play the mini buy rounds in 16 and 19, most likely if he backs up, but those are the 2 rounds that Hopewadi doesn't. But if you need major buy round coverage, so you need someone who plays 15, you need someone who plays 18, then Hopewadi is your man. I still like Hopewadi as a trade, and he's sub 600k. It's kind of now or never with the break even of 3, playing at fullback. I don't think the Broncos at home is a terrible matchup for him either. If he scores 60 to 70, he's going to be going up into the kind of 630, 640k. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh God, he's getting like within 100k maybe of someone like a Lomax. Good matchups as well in the major buy rounds. This is why I bought Hopewadi last week. I really liked the draw coming up for him. So he's got Broncos at home, Newcastle, Titans in 15, looks really, really good. Tigers in 17, and then the Rabbitohs without Latrell Mitchell in 18. But of course, misses 16 and misses 19. And round 19, I think, is the round I'm the most concerned about. You've got the Rabbitohs, Raiders, and you've got the last team keeps escaping me. Raiders, Rabbitohs, and Manly, all on the bye. And plus, after the end of the Origin period, I think you're going to see a lot of players get arrested. So I think really be careful about round 19. That's actually what's influencing me, I think, into one of my other trades this round as well. Getting rid of someone who is going to miss that round, because we really need to be careful about that particular round. And similar also for round 16. Hopewadi versus Lomax, like straight up between the two of them, Lomax I think is the better option. Better base stats, better base power stats. His goal kicking, he proved it last year. He was a Supercoach gun, and I think he just seems to be in that form of his career, or that he's in that period of his career now where he's just putting up ridiculous numbers. Like his base average this season is 39. Hopewadi's is really, really good. But Hop White is going to give you those lower scores every now and then. I think Lomax is safe for like 50, 60 pretty much every single week. So definitely between the two, I prefer a Lomax, but you just need to be a little bit more nuanced in looking at which of the major buy rounds or mini buy rounds do you need better cover. That's what I'll be using as your tiebreaker to decide between the two of them. Dylan Lucas, 6th most traded in. Absolutely, I think if you haven't owned Dylan Lucas yet, he's expensive at 740k, but I think the great buy coverage just misses round 18. Dual status, he's an absolute gun. I think you definitely need to be getting him in. Now, Jerome Hughes is interesting because I'm not sure who people are selling for Jerome Hughes. I suspect that people are selling Hines, not Cleary, because Cleary's, as far as we know, he's been named and should play. And then he's got Parramatta and then the Tigers in the next 2 weeks. If you're a Hines owner, I think if you're in a position where you've saved some trades, I think a bit of halfback roulette's not actually a bad idea. What you can do is you can go Nico Hines to Jerome Hughes this week. It's a really, really good matchup against the Titans. And then the Storm have got the Cowboys next week. Hines has got this week, he's got the bye this week. And then I believe the Sharkies have got a fairly tough matchup as well. Apologies, let me just quickly find that. They've got the Warriors at home. So not a fantastic matchup. But then round 15 against the Dragons, the Melbourne Storm are on the bye because they don't play round 15. What you could do, if you, again, halfback roulette, you can go Hines to Hughes, really capitalize on this matchup against the Titans and then the Cowboys. I'd definitely take Hughes over the next 2 weeks. And then in round 15, you could sell Cleary back to Hines because Cleary is going to be missing 15, probably 16, 17's the Dogs, and then he misses 18, and a chance he misses 19 as well. And whereas Hines, he will play 15, he plays 16, and he plays 19. So I'm definitely looking at Cleary to Hines for me in round 15. I already own Jerome Hughes. I avoided Nico Hines last week, and I think I probably got away with it. I think Hines only ended up scoring like 63, 67 points. It wasn't the kind of massacre of the Roosters that I think a lot of people were expecting last week. So I like Hughes as a standalone trade-in, but again, I think I'd only be doing it if you feel like you're in a luxury position of trades. If you're kind of tight on trades or you're starting to be a bit more worried about it, I don't think you need to be forcing in Hughes because he has been battling this shoulder issue as well. Eli Katoa I think is really good. Eli Katoa versus Koloamatangi, I know that was a question that was received on the Tuesday stream. If you were picking between one of the two, again, look at your buy coverage because Eli Katoa will play the mini buy rounds of 16, 19. Koloamatangi will miss 19 irrespective of if he gets picked for Origin, maybe game 3. Eli Katoa, his role is completely known, understood. He's 80-minute right side back rower. Koloamatangi, as it currently stands, looks like he's set for the middle, but there is a risk that he gets back onto the edge and then he's not going to be as good of a Supercoach option. So I think for sure, if you're picking one of the two, in terms of break-evens, I think break-evens works better in Koloamatangi's favour. So Eli Katoa's got a 79 break-even. Koloamatangi's got a break-even of 21. So again, if you're conscious of your money as well, then I guess get Koloamatangi. But I think for the majority of people out there, if you are looking at either one of these two, because of the matchup, I think I would get Eli Katoa this week. And then I think what you can do is wait until maybe round 15. Just guarantee that Koloamatangi doesn't play State of Origin. And then maybe you get him in round 15. You probably just need to pay up a little bit more. Maybe you're paying about 700k at the time. But if this is what he's delivering, he'll be worth 700k even then in round 15. So I think that's probably how I'd play that situation. Not entirely keen on the Ezra Mam trade, and I know he had a big score, but historically he's always been someone who averages around the 50s. So not for me. And Fletcher Sharp, I put in the same category as well as Dylan Lucas. It sucks that you missed out on that really big score from last week, but it's a good matchup this week against the Dragons. Their standalone games coming up aren't fantastic. Actually, to be honest, they're not as bad as I thought. Manly, Roosters, Dolphins is fine. And then it's the Raiders. It's just that awesome buy coverage in terms of missing no games except for round 18. And if you have a look at your own teams, you might find that round 18 you're actually pretty well covered. I'll get onto my team in a little bit, but round 18 actually looks fairly okay for me in terms of coverage. And this is another reason why I'm potentially eyeing up someone like a Lomax, because as I mentioned in last week's video, rounds 15, I think 16, rounds 15 and 18 were my main concerns, and also 19. I brought in Kale Iro. Iro plays 15, but he doesn't play 18. And round 16 was a little bit more difficult, but I really love the buy cover. I really love the games of Leo Hop Whitey. And so I just took that trade. I also brought in Tom Trbojevic in the end, which wasn't fantastic. So I think that those are some of my thoughts on the top 10 trade-ins. We'll talk quickly a little bit more about captaincy for this week, because obviously we talked a little bit about it on Tuesday, but in a bit more detail. I think Pappy seems the obvious vice captain for me. I know Fletcher Sharp is a very good candidate against the Dragons, but it's the Dragons coming off a bye. They're playing at home. And I just think the Titans, you need something on Pappenhausen in terms of captaincy or vice captaincy. There is rain predicted for Gold Coast and Brisbane over the weekend. So it actually looks like it's going to be a fairly wet affair in the Gold Coast. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the Gold Coast weather for Saturday. So yeah, Saturday is predicted for pretty much heavy rain all day. And if you look at about 3 p.m, it says, rain showers. So maybe it's easing off a little bit. But while the matchup is really, really good, I think the fact that there is that heavy rain, it gives me enough to just say, you know what, I'm just going to take the vice captain on Pappy. And if he goes and absolutely kills it, then for sure we take the loot. Otherwise, I think we'll put the captaincy on someone from that Cowboys-West Tigers matchup, which is looking a bit more of a drier game in Townsville. Or I might look to someone like a Nathan Cleary, who's got that game against Parramatta. You can see in the top 5%, Pappy's 58% vice captain. So that's the way that most people are going. If you want to look at the captaincy now in the top 5%, Terrell May is the big favorite here. 41% captained currently by those in the top 5%. And I'm currently in that camp as well. You know, going into this week, I was always thinking Drinkwater. I've just kind of changed my tack a little bit on that one. I think with Drinkwater, the concerns, very, very slight concerns I have, aside from that massive game that Pappy had against the Tigers, they've actually been okay against fullbacks this season. And also, we saw the first game that Drinkwater had with Purdue in the halves, very, very poor, and it scored like 14 points. I'm just not sure if I want to slap the captaincy on someone like a Drinkwater and risk that kind of really, really low score. Of course, we know he can go big. He can easily get 120, 130 in this game. But someone like a Terrell May, he's going to play big minutes, I think, and he's probably going to be comfortably scoring at least 80 points. And I think for me, I just want to take that bit more security, I think, coming into this week. It's a bit of a safety, Sam, but I had a big red arrow last week. And I know I'm not going to necessarily shoot straight back up by captaining, Terrell May if he only gets 80 points and Drinkwater gets call it, say, 120. But looking at the percentages here, Terrell May is more likely to hurt me. And if I didn't captain him and Drinkwater went low and Terrell May just punches out like 100, then that's going to set me even further back. And I really want to start riding the ship and getting back up and getting some green arrows, because the last few weeks have been pretty disappointing. If you look at the bench as well for the Tigers, you've got Brent Naden, Jack Bird, Sione Fainu, and Tony, Sukkar? I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a pretty light bench. Terrell May is probably going to be playing at least 70 to 75 minutes. He'll be fresh. He's coming off a bye. So I think for me, captaincy on Terrell May is currently where I'm standing. In terms of what I need to see from Pappy to take a loop score, I reckon Pappy needs to go 120 plus, and then I think I'll probably just take the vice captain loop. Anything less than maybe 110, I probably will. Maybe 100. If he gets 100, 105, I might decide to take it, especially if I think that updates are going to go in his favor. Because the thing is, the Melbourne game and then the Tigers game right after we run, they're right next to each other. So you kind of need to make that decision on Pappenhausen very, very quickly. But that's currently where my head's at. You can actually see that Cleary's a bit of a pod captain shout at 12.8%. Played really well for New South Wales. No major attack stats, but he accumulated points as he so typically does. But as it currently stands, I think Terrell May is where I'm going to be leaning in terms of my captaincy decision. And VC on Pappenhausen, I think, is firmly locked in. Hoping for a good week as well, because I've got Jerome Hughes, Eli Katoa, Munster, and Pappy. In terms of Munster, it looks like he should also be available to back up as well. That's the reports that we're reading. But I'm recording this at about 1 p.m. on Friday. 3 p.m. Friday, you should get the 24-hour cuts, and you should get a better idea of what's happening with Munster. Obviously, if he's not cut, then it probably is a good indication that he will back up. I also have a feeling that a lot of the Queensland players who lost, they're going to want to kind of roll up their sleeves and turn it around, because, they'd probably not feel great. I think coming off a loss and then not backing up for their clubs. So I think all you guys like Munster, Tino, etc. probably going to back up. Harry Grant maybe not so much, because he's only just come back from that hamstring. But at the moment, he's not very highly owned in SuperCoach as it currently stands anyway. Now, in terms of the trade outs, very quickly, let's get on to some of these. Corey Horsburgh, number 1. Now, on face value, doesn't look amazing given that he's been averaging kind of high 50s, low 60s for the season. 61 average for the season. 3-round average of 50, 5-round average of 54. Low score last week because of the sin bin. I think selling Horsburgh is completely fine. I think what we've seen from Origin was that the Queensland forwards just lacked a lot of punch. Their bench really didn't offer that much. Mo Fodawaker, I think he made 37 meters or something. Corey Horsburgh is a good chance of, I think, getting picked for Queensland if he puts in a good performance, which could mean a good SuperCoach score. But I think there is generally a chance where he gets called into that Queensland side. Maybe they pick and stick, but there is a risk. He's already missing 15, so that's not really what's concerning me. if he gets picked, he'd have to back up in round 16. That's already a bit of a tricky week. And then if he gets picked for Origin as well, he will definitely miss round 18, and he's definitely missing 19 anyway because the Raiders are on the bye. So I'm actually looking at maybe selling Horsburgh, not because I think he's standalone a terrible option, but I think he can be a stepping stone for me to an absolute gun. But also, I think the more I can step away from guys who are missing out on round 19, the better. I'm bringing in Kalamatangi this week. That's definitely happening. So that's bringing in one guy who's going to miss round 19 already. If I can say net the same by getting rid of Horsburgh, that'll make me feel a little bit more comfortable. And especially, I'm thinking more along those lines because I went and bought Lehigh Hopewadi and Tom Trbojevic last week. 2 other guys missing round 19. Now, I took that risk knowing that we're a few weeks away and I can always kind of correct things when I get there. But yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm also looking at selling a Horsburgh. Tom Jenkins, I actually think is a fine hold this week. I know his break-even is moderately high. It's like 83, but it's a good matchup, I think, at home to Parramatta. In terms of their defensive frailties, if we look at Parramatta here, so the Eels have conceded 49% of their tries to their right side. So that would be the side that Tom Jenkins is on. So I actually think Jenkins is a fine play. Now that's probably that number's probably a little bit inflated because of what happened last week. Hopewadi scored 2 tries there when Will Penasini went out with a early concussion. But still, that's a pretty healthy number. I think someone like Tom Jenkins is fine. Not great that he's got Casey McLean outside of him because inside of him, I should say. He's a bit of a glue hands. If Jenkins is your stepping stone to your guns like a Lomax, Dylan Lucas, Fletcher Sharp, I think it's completely fine. But if he's not, he's actually a fine play this week. Dylan Egan, completely understand, he's out for the season. Connor Tracy as well, so very, very high break even of 142 on the bye this week. Not a must sell this week because he's not changing in price, but next week, and based on what he's dished up the last few weeks, I think he's someone who, if you did invest in a few weeks ago, while he's still at a good value at 582k, I think I probably would be moving on. And I think someone like a Lomax would be really, really enticing. Even a Hopewadi for only 15k more, that also standalone looks like a pretty decent trade in. Because Connor Tracy does miss round 16, I believe, as well. So him and Hopewadi are the same for buy coverage, but at least you're getting Hopewadi this week playing at fullback, very, very similar in price. So Connor Tracy to Hopewadi would be a trade that makes a lot of sense to me. Naf White, I still understand that one as well. He is currently still injured, but he's due back by around 15. I'm currently going to sell Horsburgh over Naf White. And again, I'm thinking of the buy coverage. I don't think the two of them are that different in terms of their points output. If Horsburgh I expect to be about a 55 to 60, Naf White maybe is about a 50. Not a huge difference, but Naf White will get me that 16, 15, 18, and 19 cover if he's fit. And to me, that's just invaluable at the moment. So I'm holding on to Naf White over a Horsburgh. But again, understand if he's your ticket to a Kalamatangi, it's probably a trade that I'd pull the trigger on. I'm seeing a lot of Billy Smith sellers here. I'm personally holding Billy Smith. I think, again, good buy coverage for the Roosters. And I think you saw it with Rob Toyer. A lot of these cheapy centre wings, they only need one big score to really kickstart that cash gen. I think he's been a bit unlucky in some of his scores in the last few weeks as well. So Billy Smith for me, I know he's been a bit disappointing since bringing in, but break-even's manageable, and I just want him as a number and a warm body, I think, during those major buy rounds. Thomas Kent coming off the bench, I agree with that. Fanua Blake as a sell, I don't really understand at all. I assume people are looking at Fanua Blake to Kalamatangi, but if you bought Fanua Blake, it's for a reason. It's for the long term. Definitely wouldn't be selling him. And Karaz, I get that as well. He's still going to be out for the next kind of 4 to 5 weeks. So you understand that given how much money he costs. And Tom Starling as well. I mean, look, I'm not a fan of making that many trades at hooker. So not sure who people are maybe bringing in for a Tom Starling. Maybe if I duels getting Kalamatangi, I'd probably get on board with that. But again, he's got the round 18 cover, but I don't mind selling because he's probably peaked in price. He's made 203k. And there is a risk always with Owen Paddy if he plays very well this week. Starling could maybe start seeing his minutes get a bit reduced, but the last kind of 6 weeks his minutes have been very, very good. So I don't mind holding on to Starling just because hooker's a bit of a meh position. There's not that many great options, but I can understand the sell if he's your ticket to maybe someone like Kalamatangi via the duels. People might be looking at Api Coruscant potentially. Again, Coruscant's got, I think, a negative or very, very low break even. Had a 62 in base the last time he played. Big score of 140. Again, not goal kicking. I don't love it. Could be an option, but at 499k, again, you're not freeing up a ton of money going Starling down to Coruscant. Ideally for me, I think at hooker, you just kind of cop the AEs, honestly, and then maybe wait for Grant, or maybe get like a Connor Watson or a Max Plath when he's eventually back down the track. But for me at the moment, Coruscant, I don't know if he quite fits into that category of a buy for me at hooker. So that's some of my thoughts on the top 10 ins and outs. Let me just quickly maybe get on to my team and what I'm currently thinking and just round out this video. So yeah, I think there's not been that much carnage post-Origin this week, so I think we're looking pretty good. So Connor Watson only played like 16 minutes, so fully expecting him to play. Same with Payne Haas, Tapani, of course, and Terrell May, who's currently my captain. Tino, we're not 100% sure at the moment, but even if Tino plays lower minutes, I'll probably still just play him this week. He's a machine. Even if he only plays like 40 minutes, he can still pump out a 55 to 60 score. Eli Katoa, very happy with him this week against the Titans. Kolomatangi. So one of the trades that I spoke about on Tuesday was going Adam Doohy to Kolomatangi. That's the trade that I'm definitely doing. So Adam Doohy, I think, yes, the duel's handy, but he just hasn't really been offering that much output-wise, and I flicked Dylan Lucas down to centre wing to facilitate that trade. Hughes and Cleary, very happy with them. Munster, if he backs up, I'll definitely take as well. Maybe there's a risk that, if I bench King Tongia and Munster doesn't play, I'm probably going to be copying an auto emergency. But again, my auto emergencies this week, I'm looking at Billy Smith, Rob Toyer, Hubner, or Sanders Smith. I don't think any of them are terrible. They're probably punching out at worst a 35 to 40. And with the flex, it probably drops out of my score anyway. So I'm happy to take that gamble and just have Munster sitting there as my starting 5'8". Now the backs, pretty happy with that as well. We've got Lucas, Sharp, Garrick and Hopewadi. Garrick's been a little bit underwhelming, but look, I'm not going to be selling him given his buy coverage. Ero's on the buy, and then you've got Toya and Billy Smith, Pappy VC and Drinkwater. Unfortunately, Tom Trbojevic is out this week. There is a potential risk he's out next week, but I'm hopeful that he's back next week against the Knights. If not, we might have to make a decision next week. But next week, even Teddy's on the bye. He's the main competitor I have against Turbo at the moment. So this week will be a bit scary not owning Teddy and not having Turbo to kind of rival him. But Turbo, we'll see hopefully back in round 15. Also with getting Teddy and Turbo, this is one of the reasons why I'll get into my second trade. So first trade was Adam Dewey to Kolomatangi. That's locked in. And I really want Lomax. I think you heard it at the beginning of the video. I just want to set and forget him. And I think this week's matchup is actually really, really good. And if I quickly show you my cover for 15 and 18. So if you're looking at round 15 as it currently stands, I'll have Sanders Smith, Kolomatangi, Naf White and Hubner. That's 4. 5 King Tongia. And then I'll have 4 of my centers. That's 9. I'll have Ero and Billy Smith. So that's 11. Turbo 12, Drinkwater 13. I expect Turbo not to get picked for New South Wales post that win. I also expect Toya to still play for Queensland because I think he actually played pretty well. So taking out my Origin players, I think I'm going to be on 13 as it currently stands for round 15. So I'm already at the number. And I most likely will be going Cleary to Hines in round 15. So that's going to get me up to 14. If I make another trade down the track to get someone else, I'll get up to 15. So I think round 15, I look okay. I don't need to necessarily bring in someone who helps cover that round for me. And if I look around 18, this week is probably the week I'm the most set up for. I'll have Sanders Smith, Tarpany, Terrell May, that's 3. Kolomatangi 4, Eliktor 5, Naf White 6, Hubner 7, Hughes 8, King Tongia 9, Hopewadi, Garrick 10, 11, Billy Smith 12, Pappy 13, Drinkwater 14, Turbo 15. Already on 15 as it currently stands, and that's taking out some of my Origin guys. And other trade-ins I get might also help that. So I think 18 is also good. So this is why I'm thinking, okay, I think round 15, round 18, I don't need to bring in someone who covers those rounds. Round 19 is going to be tricky. I've got Tarpany, Kolomatangi, Horsburgh, Hubner, Hopewadi, Garrick, and Turbo out. That's a lot of players out. I will most likely have to sell probably Hopewadi in round 19. This is why I'm thinking of selling Horsburgh this week though, because that's one less player I need to worry about who misses in round 19. And based on what we saw in round 19, Lomax backs up, I think, in my opinion. Here's the Sunday game. So he's got a bit of a bigger turnaround. That game in game 3 is also in Sydney. So he doesn't need to travel. So this is why I think Lomax actually is good for me, because he plays, in my opinion, 16 and 19. And 16 is against the Titans. 16, I'm going to be missing out on Hopewadi. I'm going to be missing out on Garrick and Turbo. And also King Tongia. So not as badly affected. But it will be a round where you're going to have probably more Origin players miss out because it's such a long distance going from Perth back to Brisbane or back to Sydney or to Melbourne. So having a guy who I think is going to back up that week is a gun and has the Titans in round 16, that's someone who I want. So this has led me to the path, I think, of going Horsburgh to Lomax this week. So Dewey to Koloamatangi is locked in, and then I think Horsburgh to Lomax. And I wanted to frame it in this way because on face value, my trades look like Dewey to Lomax and Horsburgh to Koloamatangi. Not quite like that. Dewey to Koloamatangi was always happening for me. It's now, I've over the last couple of days seen what happened with Origin, Queensland and whatnot, and Lomax gunning it. I really want Lomax. Now, the biggest concern I potentially have about this is using all of my money. So I had a lot of money in the bank, and that was basically by not going Teddy, went Turbo. This would leave me with 83k in the bank. The problem is going to be that if in round 15 I want Tedesco, if I don't sell Pappy or Drinkwater, Turbo is my only way to get there. He's going to be about 500, 550k, and Teddy might be 800, 850k. I need 300k to facilitate that, so I'm going to need to free up at least another 200, 250k. And I don't really have a clear path to doing that as it currently stands. If I want to go Turbo to Teddy, if Turbo's fit and looks good, I don't need to make that move because Turbo has got the Titans in round 15. So this is more of a question of if I need to do that move, if Turbo's injured, or if I just think Teddy's a must, or if I want to make that move maybe in round 16, because in round 16, Turbo is going to miss out and I might be really low on numbers. The ways I've thought about maybe doing that, Cleary to Hines should free up about 60 to 100k potentially based on how well Cleary goes the next couple of weeks. Maybe at that point in time, if I want to offload a Payne Haas, that might be a way to doing it. Or I might just have to downgrade one of my other guys who I haven't identified yet, maybe like a Connor Watson. Maybe most likely would also be maybe downgrading Rob Toyer in round 15. So that's the current plan with Rob Toyer. He's got a negative 22 break even. Let him play one more week. Misses 14 with the bye, and then round 15, obviously if he plays Origin, he'll miss out. And then I can just see what to do with him there. Maybe a downgrade emerges that I can just move to, maybe even enough. And that might be how I free up the money for Tedesco. So I think I've got enough avenues to free up that money if I need it, to give me the confidence to spend this money now and get Lomax in for Horsburgh. I think I've talked myself into getting this trade done. I think he's just a set and forget season keeper. I think he'll be a slight point of difference as well. And I think it really helps my team outlook for this week. So my reserves would now be Cleary, Lucas, Tarpany, and I'll probably still have to play like a Sanders Smith. But I think it's 3 really, really good reserves and 1 slightly underperforming one. But I really like the look of having Lomax. And I think, again, by getting Hop Whitey last week, I feel like maybe I'm a slight 1 step ahead. And so maybe I can look to push and get Lomax in. I think next week will be a week that I don't make any trades. And then I think we maybe have to do 2 or 3 trades in round 15. So that's my team, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It's been about 30 minutes, a little bit longer than I planned on doing for a final thoughts video, but wanted to give a bit more of an update post Origin. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and catch you all in the next one.